Hello, my name is Stacey Mankoff, and I'd like to welcome you all to the latest edition of the Bellringer, which, as you know, is an offshoot of our After the Bell events, which have been on pause for quite almost a year now due to the global pandemic. But we are trying to be as optimistic as possible that we will hopefully all be together later this year. But in the meantime, I am delighted to welcome Dr. Stylianos Kampakis, who will be discussing the normalization of AI in business. Now, Stylianos educates the public about the power of data science, AI, and blockchain, and has worked with decision makers from startups to large organizations like Vodafone and British Land. He is a member of the Royal Statistical Society, an honorary research fellow at the UCL Center for Blockchain Technologies, a data science advisor for London Business School, CEO of the Tesseract Academy, which is not related to Doctor Who, I found out that, and CDO at Datalist. He is a natural polymath with a PhD in machine learning and degrees in artificial intelligence, statistics, psychology, and economics. And he loves using his broad skills to solve difficult problems and help companies improve their efficiency. And I'm delighted to welcome you, Stylianos. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. That was very well said. Better than I would have said it myself.
Well, you did write it. So anyway, it's all good. Anyway, so we're discussing the normalization of AI in business. What does normalization of AI mean?
So yeah, according to my definition of normalization of AI, normalization as a term can be used in also in a scientific context, but now we're using it more in, let's say, a social context. And by that, I mean a state where talking about AI, and this applies to other technologies as well, is seen as so normal that you don't even have to talk about AI. This might sound a bit cryptic, but I think it's best to give an example around that, right?
Yes,
so
please.
If you go 20 years back and in the early days of the internet, relatively early days, like 20 years back, the internet had started being like everywhere, but, I guess, I'm not sure if fiber optics were around. So smartphones weren't around for sure. So internet existed, but it was still a thing. Like if you had a company, maybe you wouldn't be on the internet. And then if you were on the internet and you had a website, that was something important, it was like a new channel. But no one's really using the term the internet in this way. No one anymore says, oh, we are an internet startup or we're an internet company, right? It's just there, right? And I guess the same with other technologies like personal computers, the telephone. Okay, I don't think that any of us are old enough, like 150 years old, whenever the telephone was invented. But I think we always see these patterns in technology. And right now, AI has been through many ups and downs, right? So the AI was invented around the 50s, and then it went through a couple of good decades. Then we had like the AI winters when no one wanted to talk about AI. And since 2000, since the turn of the millennium, it has been on an upward trajectory for various reasons, like the data explosion, which has primarily been led on one hand by the dispersion of internet everywhere and smartphones, on the other hand, by having cheaper access to storage, also increased computational power, etc. But in one way or another, AI is becoming more and more common, right? And now you hear about many startups saying, oh, we're an AI startup. Consultancies like the Big Four, they're like, oh, we promote AI services, AI adoption, digital transformation with a focus on AI. And eventually, once everyone starts using AI, and once AI becomes so easy to use where a new company or a startup or whatever, they can just access it as a service from, many different providers, it's not only going to be Amazon. Now we have a few major players like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, but they're more coming into this space. And once this happens, then we will no longer say, oh, I run an AI startup or I'm promoting AI services. It will sound as weird as, saying I'm, into computer services. It's it's like it will just be.
Well, when you're talking about AI becoming normal, within a sector, I mean, what sort of applications are we exactly talking
Yeah, I think this is one of the challenges that the AI practitioners like myself have met in
about?
when working with clients. The reason being that AI is essentially a toolbox, right? So it's not
Right.
like a single technology; it's a set of technologies. It can be applied in many things. In many things, I don't want to say everything, but yeah, in nearly everything. It's a bit like computers, really, right? So it can be applied in many problems, but understanding which are the right applications also requires knowing which are the challenges of a domain. And this is not always clear to an AI practitioner or a data scientist, right? So if, for example, tomorrow I decide that I want to spend the rest of my career using AI, I don't know, to help cardiologists,
Right.
prevent heart disease.
Uh-huh.
I have the knowledge of the algorithms, but I don't know anything about cardiology, right?
Right.
So, which presents a challenge. But on the other hand, the cardiologists probably don't know anything about AI or data science.
Right.
And the challenge with AI adoption, and this is an ongoing process, is you need these two things to meet, right? So you need the domain experts to meet with the data scientists. So this is where the challenge lies. And that's why, in order to make AI normal in a sector, we need to go through this work of breaking down each use case and then finding out which are the best tools to apply. So
Mm,
once this happens on a massive scale in many different countries, on a single industry, then it's going to become normal, right? So people expect they're going to work with AI. Pretty much, when you go when you drive a car, you expect that steering now is going to be hydraulic, right? It's not like 20, 30 years ago where maybe you needed some, strength in your arms to actually turn a vehicle.
You're talking to somebody who just started driving again after 30 years. So
Okay.
so I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
Well, we're
I mean,
talking about, but one thing about it, like you mentioned the cardiologist and all that. So you're talking
mhm,
about a marriage between the expert in the actual industry and the AI specialist.
mhm.
So which sounds really exciting. Um, what are you finding are the biggest objections to this?
The biggest objections. So I think one of the biggest objections comes from the specialists that, oh, you can never automate this or that. You can never use AI to do this or that. You need a human here, you need a human there. And in many cases, you need humans,
Mhm.
but in many domains, you can do really well without requiring humans. And I
When
think,
you're one thing, just I just want to say, when you're talking about domains,
mhm.
are you talking about particular industries or particular, what do you mean by domain?
Could be any, right? It's a bit of a loose term, but when you
I
say,
like to get a little specific, that's all.
yeah, when you say we have domain knowledge, this depends on the kind of problem, challenge we're talking about, right? So
Mhm.
maybe you have domain. I think medicine again is a good example, right? So I
Okay.
can tell you that let's say I want to develop a product, an
Mhm.
AI product in
Mhm.
medicine. Um, I could tell you that I need someone with domain knowledge in medicine, but there's so many different fields in medicine that I don't think there's anyone who actually knows everything about everything, right?
Right.
Whereas if we're talking about other domains, like I don't know, large retailers, maybe there's so many similarities between retailers of a certain size and above, at least in some geographical territories,
Mhm.
that from perspective of a data scientist, you just need someone, you can just get one person who simply understands this group of companies well enough, and you're good to go. So it's a bit subjective and a bit problem specific, but
Mhm.
essentially we're talking about a vertical
Mhm.
or let's say subdivisions of a vertical.
Because it's interesting, because today there was an article, I think it was the BBC, about AI, and
Hmm.
it was talking about when somebody did a search for female,
Hmm.
the all the photographs came up in bikinis, like
Okay.
all this, because the algorithm took that information and basically said, this is how women are viewed.
Yeah.
So this is something, so basically, isn't the AI only as good as the algorithm that's created for it by the human,
Mm.
by the experts?
It's also as good as the data that's being fed into it,
Okay.
right? So if everyone feeds into the algorithm females in bikinis, then this is
Right.
what it understands about the world.
But what I'm saying is that that's what it collected, and that's what
Mhm.
the algorithm collected. So, it kind of gave me a little, if I was searching, if I was using, you have to be very careful then with the information you get, because if you're working with a cardiologist and something is off on that, that could be a life or death situation.
Mhm. Yeah, this is correct. But I think that there's lots of resistance in this regard because it's something new.
And I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit over
Yeah.
here too.
I,
Not
for,
too
for,
much, but
for me, the biggest battleground for this is autonomous vehicles. I think as soon as people see that you can have algorithms driving vehicles
right,
and they do this more successfully than humans, then
right.
many other doors are going to open up. I think in domains like medicine, like automation in medicine,
Mhm.
on a wide scale. I mean, we already see some automation in medicine, but like on a wide scale, it's gonna take a long time because there's so many specialized domains in medicine that maybe we're not even talking about, let's say, something like cardiology or neurology. Maybe you need to start looking into very specific diseases or operations if we're talking about
Right.
surgery.
Mhm.
But there's always this argument that, oh, autonomous vehicles, and what if an AI kills a pedestrian by accident? And what do you think humans are doing? So
Yes, but I think that but we are less forgiving of an automated
yes.
situation than we are of human error. So that's it's all the AI has to be better than any, it really it's got to be like Caesar's wife, above reproach for anything.
Mhm.
Um besides driving, I mean, there's so many applications with AI. I mean, I look at using my phone now and everything is facial recognition.
Mhm.
And that has become totally acceptable now.
Mhm.
Um, and do you see that going even further? And on that level, also, what are the, again, what are the dangers with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is what the process of normalization entails. And this gets
Mhm.
us right back at the beginning.
Right.
That when you're using your phone and it has some face recognition capabilities, or even if you're taking a photo and there are like some bounding boxes around faces telling you this is where
Mhm.
detected faces.
Mhm.
Some cameras do that as well.
Mhm.
And you're not really thinking, oh my God, that's like a deep convolutional neural network. I need to understand how this works. You just accept that this thing
Exactly.
works.
It's basically seamless, we don't know how it
Yes.
works. Yeah.
So this is what normalization is about. That
Uh-huh.
maybe in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, everyone will be like, "Wait, why did we have to drive our own cars?" And it's going to be the same with like many other things. Like, oh,
Mhm.
why we don't have voice interfaces for everything in our house, right? I just want to give commands to my house, turn the lights on, do this and
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
and it will be so seamless and that we will be wondering like why we didn't do this earlier. I guess Google Maps is another good example that
Mhm.
so many people now are used to using Google Maps or similar software
Mhm.
depending on your
Mhm.
preferences. And
Mhm.
one key feature of this is not just the map or because we always had maps, but you can actually see which direction you're looking at,
Mhm.
and it tells you which way to go. And this seems so easy that the younger generations that are now growing up with these tools in their hands, probably I guess they're not very good in using an actual paper map to find the way around a city. But
Mhm.
even us, who grew up using like normal maps, we're like, it's just so much easier to use Google Maps that we're like, hey, how could we, in let's say 20 years ago, actually have like a map in our pockets and try to find the landmarks and all that.
No, I have a very young a cousin, very young cousin, and she goes through a magazine and she keeps hitting the pictures, thinking that that'll make it move. So, and she's 3. So I
Okay.
understand in all of this. And but what makes AI different from any other tech application?
It depends on what application you're comparing it to, because
Okay.
someone could argue that it's not different from computer science, standard computer
Okay.
science, because we're talking about algorithms. I
Right.
guess what's different is that AI is really aiming to create autonomous algorithms, intelligent algorithms.
Hmm.
And the big vision behind AI is to have really, really general solutions,
Hmm.
like the things you see in movies. We're far from that. So instead of having a general solutions, we
Hmm.
have many small algorithms to do small things here and there.
Hmm.
But even if we don't really, discover some master algorithm which thinks like us,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure if this is feasible. That's a very large debate. We are definitely going through some incremental steps of progress,
Hmm.
and we're going to reach this point of massive automation. So I'd say, yeah, AI is like pretty much like any other toolbox, like any other set of technologies.
Hmm.
But I guess the unique feature is that this this capacity for intelligence now, whether it's artificial or natural, or whether what's the nature of intelligence. Again, it's a big debate,
Hmm.
but I think this is also part of the fascination with AI, right? So if
Right.
I can also talk to you about blockchain, but you're not. But you won't find many science fiction movies about some blockchain network becoming conscious and taking over the global financial system. Even if Bitcoin does that, you know what I mean?
No, not yet. Maybe, next year, but no, not yet. Well, I mean, this is really just you're just giving me a little taste of what is such a huge topic and all of that. And that's what we wanted to do with these Bellringer sessions. So I really, is there one more thing you would like to add before we go?
Uh, I'm not sure. This was an interesting discussion, and
Uh-huh.
I have a few conversation threads, but
Uh-huh.
like about general AI, etc. But I don't want to
Yeah.
steer too far off topic, because this
Okay.
can
No,
take
no,
us
no,
for like two,
no.
three hours
We'll
more.
have a whole. Well, someday we'll have a whole after the bell panel all about this and
Yeah,
all of
let's
that.
do that. Yeah.
And if anyone who's listening to this would like to reach out further, we have the contact information available as well. So, Stylianos, thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it, and it just gave me a little taste of what I need to research some more.
Amazing. Thank you, Stacey.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Bye bye.